Welcome to the podcast. Thank the passer. What does it mean? Well, it means exactly what it says. Thanking the person who gave you a pass. Thank the passer. You'll typically see this after a pass that led to a score. I mean, you can always tell somebody good pass after a missed shot, but the way we teach it and the way we demand it, the definition in its purest form, is showing visual appreciation for your teammate that created an opportunity and was willing to share the ball in order for you to make a basket. Think about what the game has become in some places, even the NBA sometimes. Over dribbling and selfish basketball. I hate to oversimplify and generalize, but in many ways, that's what even non basketball people see when they casually watch an NBA basketball game. Not every player and not every team, but enough to make the casual fan notice and turn off the games, make them go watch baseball or something else. Because it boils down to selfish basketball, right? And selfish doesn't have anything to do with giving thanks. Those two things are complete opposites, selfish and selfless. So, too far in either direction, and something is off. And selfish basketball is ugly. Nobody wants to see that. However, every player wants to score. And can you blame them? The best scorers get on the highlights. And then, in a roundabout sort of way, they end up getting bigger contracts and making more money. So, the mental correlation there for a lot of players is score more, earn more. And who can blame them? To a certain degree, they aren't completely wrong. And there's a correlation between the leading scorers of teams and leagues and the highest salaries. Is there a sport that you can think of where that isn't the case? Can you think of one? Me neither. So, with a limited window of earning opportunity, it completely makes sense why players would want to make as much as possible. They have a limited window. A coach can coach until he's 50, 60, 70, even 80 years old. Those guys are out there at every level. Respect to them. But players, the vast majority of players can only dream of playing until they're 40. And that's if they're crazy lucky to avoid injuries. And I guess if you have LeBron James type genes. Because at some point, even the best athletes can't run and jump like they used to. Your body just won't allow it anymore. So for sure, it's understandable that players want to make as much as possible when their bodies will still let them. And that's not just the NBA. College players want to earn as much as possible too. And it's always been like that. It's just legal now with the NIL. Before, it used to be an envelope of cash or a job and a house for your parents. If you're an amazing player at one of those best schools, that's the way it was done. A lot of championships were won like that. And anybody who pretends otherwise is either naive, oblivious, or a fan of the team that won. So for sure, it's understandable to an extent that players are selfish because that's what gets noticed. That's what shows up in the newspapers. Here in Pittsburgh, they publish the scores and include whoever scored in double digits. And keep in mind that there's no shot clock here. So it's not exactly unusual to see scores in the 30s and 40s. I know, but that's just the way it is. It happens. That's not rare. So it's a big deal to get your name in the paper by getting double digits. And even if most kids don't even know what it's like to hold an actual newspaper in their hands, like an actual newspaper that you had to open up and hold a certain way, fold it over to get it just right so you can read it, they don't even know what that feels like anymore because they're used to looking up scores on their phones these days. It's a different world. But for the parents and especially grandparents that still get newspapers at their homes, those newspaper box scores are a thing of pride. A chance to brag a little bit when you're talking to the neighbors or your friends on the phone. So players, understandably, they want to score, and parents want to see their kids score. And the mentality has just kind of evolved and been reinforced that scoring gets rewarded. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it doesn't creep towards absolute selfishness. And that's what smart coaches want to avoid, because you need to score to win. It's called a scoreboard after all. But smart coaches can care less who does the scoring as long as the ball goes in the hoop. And the best teams typically have more than just one player who's dangerous. This isn't always evident on the lowest levels because there's so many beginners. It's a bunch of kids running around, almost looking like a pack of dogs chasing a single tennis ball. And because it's typically a mom or a dad volunteering their time to the community, doing the best they can. And if their son or daughter's any good, everybody's going to be secretly mumbling that it's daddy ball or whatever, which is sometimes very true. So at those youth levels, where one kid is just way better than everybody else, it's theoretically easier to stop a team like that that just has one dangerous player. But the whole daddy ball thing is a subject for another podcast on a different day. So let's move on and focus on the concept, thank the passer. So with those youth teams that just have one dangerous player, as kids improve, as they get older, as they work on their skills, as they develop confidence in their abilities on the court, sometimes there's a bit of competition for who can be the man or be the alpha, be the best player on the team, which for the most part ends up being whoever scores the most points. And to score, you have to shoot. That's just the way it works. And coaches, they have to balance that with making sure that the ball moves. So everybody develops and has chances and opportunities. So that ideally, in a perfect world, every player is equally dangerous. So that it's really hard in the defense to deny, to trap, to take away just one player. Like a box and one on the best player because everybody else on the team can barely dribble. So smart coaches, they need to balance that because they want to win, right? And they can care less who does the scoring, but building that culture and building that appreciation for ball movement and sharing, it's hard sometimes when every other source in their young lives is constantly reinforcing them to shoot it every time they touch it. Their dads yell it from the stands, their moms scream it, they hear about it again in the car, and the kids see it on social media. They notice that the ones that score are being celebrated. Everywhere they turn, they're confronted with the idea that scoring is good, as if that's the end all be all of basketball. So it's really hard for coaches to build that culture because it can't just be words. Kids, players, they need to experience it in other ways. They need to see it. They need to feel it. And then they need to feel appreciated, rewarded, and celebrated when they do the right thing and make the right pass. Otherwise, they'll continue to over dribble and shoot bad shots. So thank the passer. We talked about what it is and what it means, but what does it really look like? In a nutshell, it's basically this. Let's pretend you and I are teammates. We're on offense. We're on the court playing 5-on-5. You make a great move and get by your defender. We have a lot of listeners and our audience is growing every day. Thank you for listening. And an even bigger thank you to those of you that have shared a link to any of our episodes with any of your friends, family, or other parents and coaches you know. So our listener, you and I are teammates. You make your move. And let's pretend that you're a talented hooper. Like I said, we have a lot of listeners, so I don't know if all of you were talented hoopers. But for the sake of my story right now, I'm pretending you had handles and you can make things happen on the court. So if that wasn't true, your secret is safe with me. But I'm just going to need you to imagine a little bit harder than normal for the sake of this story. So you make your move, killer crossover, quick through the legs, and you felt your defender reach and lean. So you crossed it low and left them wobbly. In fact, just to have a really nice visual image that can stick with you, you made them fall. They fell down. And you know what that's called, right? Ankles. So all your friends in the crowd are hooting and hollering, and you know it. You know it's going to be highlight material. But if you score, that might be SportsCenter worthy. So you're planning on finishing the job and getting a bucket. But remember, we're playing 5-on-5. And my defender starts to shade over to you and is coming fast in your direction. In fact, the entire defense has shifted because they're trying to help their teammate and compensate for the fact that they're playing 4-on-5. Because your defender is cleaning the floor with their shorts because you ankled them. So instead of forcing up a difficult contested shot, you see me standing near the hoop and you make the right read and you throw the pass to me. And just for some zest, just for some extra flavor for this story, so it sticks with you long after you finish listening to this episode, you look toward our other teammate in the left corner, but you throw it to me as I'm moving toward the right block. Beautiful no-look pass. Magic Johnson-esque. And then I catch it, shoot it off the backboard, and it goes in. Bucket. This wasn't a game winner. It wasn't even the fourth quarter. Just a play in the middle of the game. And remember these words. Thank the passer. Now, most kids in my shoes would be feeling pretty good about themselves right now. Maybe even my parents caught it on video. Maybe some of my friends saw it. I scored. That's good. That's been reinforced in my brain too many times to count. I scored. That's good. But it wasn't a game winner, so I don't have time to run around the court like crazy. My teammates aren't leaving the bench and picking me up to hoist me on their shoulders. The fans, all 50 of them, they aren't storming the court. It was just a routine basket in the middle of a game. So maybe I can muster a fist bump or a head nod to celebrate myself. Maybe the ball got kicked around as it fell to the floor, so I have an extra couple seconds before I have to sprint back and find my man. So maybe I can do the LeBron walk with the high knees and pushing both hands downward at my sides as if I'm swimming in a waist-deep pool. Okay, maybe that last part was a little bit too much, but you get the point. I have a little bit of time, but we're playing basketball, so you get the idea. I'm feeling good. I scored. That's good. Coach is happy. People are clapping. But who said good pass? It happens sometimes, but not enough. Who celebrated and congratulated and rewarded? Because without you, my basket never would have happened. You did all the hard work. You. I just happened to be standing there with my hands ready. I didn't even have to dribble. Just catch and shoot. You made it happen. So, those magic words. Thank the passer. What does it look like in action? Here's how we teach it. You have to point to the teammate that passed it to you. Make eye contact. Outstretched arm. Elbow straight. Index finger fully extended in their direction. That's it. Of course, you can say something. You can blurt out, great pass or nice pass, plus a name or a nickname or any variation off of that. But that's not necessary. What is necessary is looking directly at them for a quick second, pointing at them, and appreciating them for sharing the ball, making the right play, and creating a great scoring opportunity for a teammate. And I want to stress that this doesn't apply if I caught the ball and dribbled 3 times before shooting. That's not the same scenario. Thank the passer comes into play when a teammate gives the ball to a teammate who's so open and ready to catch, target hands, palms toward the ball, that all they have to do is catch and shoot. This means any shot from a layup to a three, after a nice swing or an extra pass, or at the higher levels, a lob dunk, but it doesn't have to be as exciting or flamboyant as the scene I described earlier when you ankled somebody and found me with a no-look. Just any situation when a teammate passes to an open teammate who shoots without dribbling and scores. That's when it applies. But thank the passer doesn't require anything other than what I described. Look at your teammate, point with your arm fully extended in their direction. It's not a situation that requires you to run over and hug them. You don't have to ask for a timeout so you can write them a quick thank you and some stationery that you brought to the game for this exact occasion. No Hallmark cards needed. You don't need to stop playing basketball and go over and find your teammate for a high five or your secret 7-step handshake routine. In fact, you need to keep playing basketball. Maybe your team plays full court defense and you need to find your man as quickly as possible. So you don't have time for all that extra stuff anyways. But you do have the 1 to 2 seconds required to point at your teammate and thank the passer. And make sure the fans see it. Make sure the coaches see it. Make sure that anybody who ever watched that clip, if they see video of the game, make sure everybody sees it. Not a little sneaky no-look point with your pinky finger while your hand is at your side. That's not good enough. That's not what thank the passer is. In our academy, with hundreds of kids coming through all of our locations and learning our curriculum, we have rules. One of them is that if you don't thank the passer, you're getting subbed out immediately. We want the ball to move. I hesitate to say that we want to play a European style because there's a lot of very good basketball played in America too. We have the gold medals to back that up. But we do want to play a style that is indeed somewhat modeled after how kids are taught to play on the other side of the Atlantic. And perhaps that's because of soccer and seemingly all European players having some type of youth experience with soccer. So they've been taught and they better understand angles and how to pass and move, not just stand. How to pass and anticipate how that initial pass can lead to a second pass for somebody else in a better position. Again, at the risk of generalizing or overgeneralizing, in America we overdribble. Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments if you disagree. Because whether that leads to an argument or a debate, in America we overdribble, which stagnates the flow and stops the ball and starts to look and feel selfish. So in our academy, we want to do everything possible to encourage ball movement, cutting, spacing, and the basic traits that lead to beautiful basketball. The Golden State Warriors won several championships like this, and it was beautiful basketball, moving the ball, playing together, finding the best available open shot. So thank the passer. We don't just teach them to do it. We don't just ask them to do it. We make them do it. And if they don't do it, they're going to sit on the bench and watch other players doing it. And this shapes their behavior. And think about what that does, short term and long term. In the scenario I described earlier, The one where you ankled your defender. That was nasty, right? Then the no look too. Whoo, that was nice. But imagine your defender didn't fall down, and that it wasn't a no look, and that it wasn't a layup, but me standing somewhere else for an open shot. So not as special, but the same general chain of events. How much better would you feel if I did my part and looked at you, reached out my hand to point at you, and the coach and the crowd also knew, were signaled to know that what you did deserves recognition, appreciation, celebration. So the results? Instead of going in depth about how it's completely transformed, how the next generation of players think and see the game, just know this: the players develop habits, and they carry these traits with them back to their school teams, wherever they are, and it becomes contagious. And pretty soon, there's multiple players per team that thank the passer, and that makes the passer feel good, which means that he or she will be willing to do it again, which means that the receivers, the players that got the ball for the open shots, no longer feel like they need to force up a bad shot if and when they get it, because they know that the ball will move and find the most open player. So the basketball gods, karma, however you want to phrase it, it rewards the players that play like this. It rewards the teams that play like this. It rewards the coaches that teach and instruct and build a culture for their team to play like this. Thank the passer. Have you ever seen this before? I mean, look at the pros, the winning teams, the best teams, not just the best players, the best teams, the championship teams. For sure, you've seen them thank the passer before. And if you haven't, you probably either didn't even realize it or didn't know what you were looking at. And if you have, leave a comment below with the name of the player and what team. You can probably make an entire highlight video of some of those warriors pointing at each other after scoring baskets that were made easier because all they had to do was shoot, because their teammate was willing to share the ball. And there's some kids that initially think it's weird or corny or goofy. These are the same kids that don't like to talk on defense. These are the same kids that mumble when the head coach leaves the room. These are the same kids that blame somebody else when they make a mistake. So some kids won't naturally or instinctively embrace this concept. And as much as I hate to say it, because it perhaps sounds mean, they don't embrace it because somebody somewhere along the way allowed them to think that it was okay to be selfish. And maybe they're really good, maybe they're talented, or just kind of good, but better than their teammates in whatever little pond that they're in. So their coach or parent, they just let them rock out and do whatever and act however they wanted. And that's not right, but it happens sometimes. So players like this, they didn't make their teammates better. They did not inspire, motivate, and lift up their teammates because they were too cool. Don't be that kid. And if you're a parent listening to this, don't allow your son or daughter to be that kid. Get them to play as a team and find a way to help them understand the beauty of playing the right way, making your teammates better, moving the ball, talking on defense, and make sure they thank the passer. So, some of those kids that don't listen or don't want to do what the coach wants, they'll grow up to sit on the bench if they're lucky enough to move up in levels, especially if they ever play for a really good coach on a winning team and or play on a really high level. If that isn't expected or demanded of them, then as much as I hate to say it, their coach probably isn't very good. And sometimes some really bad coaches still win some games, maybe even a lot of games, but mainly because they had better talent. Because great coaches care about playing the right way. But if there's anything that we can learn from all the Europeans that have been infiltrating our game at every level, including the NBA, it's that passing matters. And we should appreciate players that share and move the ball, the ones that make it easier for their teammates to score. We should laud and appreciate them at every step of the way. So if you're a coach, make your team thank the passer. Trust me, it's a simple way to help build a culture and a style of play that's really fun for the players, enjoyable for the fans to watch. And of course, all that extra ball movement will lead to more open shots, with hopefully more makes than misses. So everybody will be happy. I hope you can take a lot away from this episode, not just the part about you being Magic Johnson in our example. And now you know what thank the passer means. Any questions? Please leave a comment. And as a special request, just like the ball movement that we talked about in this episode, please do us a favor and share this episode with somebody you know. And in your mind, visualize whoever you send it to, pointing in your direction, thanking you for the beautiful pass and sharing some wisdom. Thank the passer. Come get some.